Hey guys, Kanak here with the Innkeeping. I was inspired by a little phrase that I heard today, it was somebody talking about the deity of Christ, Messiah, and this has fascinated me for many years. Now, what we're going to talk about real quick, it's just a quick thought. We're not going to get into a huge theological discussion, but we're going to connect a few dots here that I think are super important. You know, if we sit down and we talk about how this works, we could be here for hours and hours and hours. This has been a conversation that's gone on and on throughout the eons. And, you know, it comes down to the question of who do you say that he is, right? Is he a created being, the first created being, and then he created all things? Is he literally the creator? Is he part of a trinity? Some of these delve into how it works, but what I want to do is let's take a quick journey real quick into these words that are going to be used for the phrase Jesus is Lord, is what we see in the English. And I believe it's in 1st or 2nd Corinthians. I forgot to look up the verse, but you can go check it out. And it talks about how anybody who's led of the Ruach will confess that Jesus is Lord, is what we see in the English. And that's true. That's 100% true. It's interesting. But when we look at the actual revelation of what is behind the words, we can go a little bit deeper and realize that there's an identity to this person whom we call Jesus. And it reveals that he's more than just a man. And for me, it wipes out any doubt that he is God manifest in the flesh. So, if we take a look at the word Jesus, now we know that that's the English version, or we should know that that's not what anybody pronounced his name 2,000 years ago, because there wasn't even English. English is a hodgepodge of, Latin and French and Spanish and it's evolved over the years. They used to call it back in the 1500s. I think King James called it a vulgar language. So, take it for what it is. Yah makes a way even in the English. So, however, if you look at the etymology of the word Jesus, long story short, it would go from Jesus, and you could chase the etymology to Jesus in the Greek, and then that was translated from some say Aramaic, some say Hebrew. I believe he spoke Aramaic as a language of the people of the day, just like Greek was. Aramaic was right there. But they also knew, as the authorities spoke Latin before Latin became widespread, so was Hebrew spoken in between the inner circles of the Hebrew sages, and even within your own tribe, they understood Hebrew. But the common language of the day when it came to the Hebrews and so on and so forth, right up there with Greek, was Aramaic. So what you do is you have this short contracted form, Yeshua, and it comes from the spelling Yod He Vav Shin Ayin. And some would say that the Yod He Vav Shin Ayin would go back to the Yod He Vav Shin Vav Ayin, back to the Yahushua or Yahushua. There's debate on the pronunciation. Nobody actually knows. I know people will say they do, but nobody actually knows. We've heard terms like Yahusha. So you have this etymology that goes back, but we will say, and what we can show, is that Yeshua is a contracted form of the Hebrew. I guess a clumsy analogy would be like if we call somebody Joseph, but we call them Joe. If their name is Joseph and we call them Joe, right? And this is a really meat and potatoes quick lesson, and because I don't want to get people caught up in the pronunciation. However, when we start looking at the lettering and what's going on here with the name Jesus and how we follow it back, something begins to unravel. So you have this Jesus or Yeshua or Yahushua, right, or Yahusha, and the lettering of the name literally begins to unravel the very letters that are in the name Yod He Vav He, or partial letters that are in the name Yod He Vav He. Now this is significant because when we look at the Greek for Lord, as in Jesus is Lord, he's not just, when you look at Lord, you you chase down that, you can do it in any Strong's Concordance. The word in the Greek there, which it is translated from, eventually it goes to, eventually it'll go from the Greek to the Latin and then to the English. I'm probably missing a few things in between, but that's roughly how it goes when they were translating it from the Greek. And the word used there was kurios. When you look at the pattern of the Old Testament, every time they came across the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh or Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, some people say Yahweh, some people pronounce it Yehovah, some people pronounce it Yahweh, some people pronounce it Yahuwah. I'm emphasizing these names because a lot of people go, if you don't pronounce it right, you're not saved, and that's not right, okay? But what we can do is acknowledge that what is there is the four Hebrew letter name of Yah, okay, or Yahweh, or Yahuwah, or Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And every time in the Septuagint, which was translated 1 or 2 BCE, it was the Hebrew translated to the Greek, Koinonia Greek. Every time they saw the word Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, they literally, instead of just keeping Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, which some manuscripts are showing that they did this in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but that's for another day. They did keep the original 4-letter name, but they would translate it to kurios. Kurios. Not Kyrie, not Kurion, which have the idea of being master and Lord, right? Lord of all, master of all. However, the one word they used for when they saw the actual name of Yah, or name of God, Elohim, was kurios. So when you go over to the New Testament and you see where it says Jesus is Lord, okay? In the Greek it would have been Iesus, right? And then the Lord in the Greek was kurios. So you could etymologically replace the kurios, which is, it's not necessarily the transliteration of the name, it's what they used because they didn't know what to put. There's some debate about the reason why they did that. You can do your own study on this. However, kurios would have represented the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So let's read it again and take a look at what is being said here. It literally says that this Jesus of Nazareth isn't just the Lord or a Lord, right? Or the Lord, and like, what Lord are we talking about? Now, you and I know, right, the identity, but literally, Jesus, Yeshua, is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. He is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh made flesh to us. And in my mind, when you chase these words down and look at the depth of what's happening here, Paul is saying that only by the Ruach can we declare and confess that in the English, Jesus is Lord, but literally, Yeshua, Yahushua is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And when we understand this revelation from the what, the entire word of Elohim, the word of God, the Bible, begins to open up to you in ways that you couldn't imagine. Now we can have a discussion about the how. But I don't think we'll ever get there until we meet him. You know why? Because we are dealing with an infinite being and we're finite. So he's only revealed to us in part in this place, time and space, as we are now. So, and then I say, keep up the journey, be blessed, have a great day.